You know that old adage, you don't know what you don't know? Well, we probably don't notice it very much, except for when we're looking for an answer to something that we're seeking, right? We then notice that we don't know what we don't know. But what about the rest of the time? I'm sure there's many instances where just sort of being in the dark and not knowing what we don't know is probably a gift. But when does it come with a cost? That's what we're going to talk about today. Enjoy the story. Hey, you're listening to the Intentional Documentary Podcast. So glad to have you. Around here, I'm gushing over the stories behind the pictures that we freaking love of our own lives. You know, the ones we hold as high value and iconic, because this is where photography meets real life. I'm your host, Marie Moss, and I believe that the best way to approach your photography is through your lens, your way. Through insightful conversations with photographers, I'll explore preserving life with your camera and using what lights you up to grow your brand. Let's get started. Welcome back, intentional documentarian. I don't know about that. I need to find something that's not so much of a mouthful that rolls off my tongue. I just really love how Jenna Kutcher can address her audience of, hey, Gold Digger, or John Lee Dumas can talk to his audience, hey, Fire Nation. I'd love something like that, and I'm open to suggestions because intentional documentarian is a bit of a mouthful. But anyway, let's get to it. Here's a little bit of I don't know if it's a warning, but a little flag I'm waving to say that this episode's a little bit deeper, especially coming out on the other side of all these business conversations that we've been having. But it's an important conversation that I need to have with you for various reasons. And I'm going to be really candid here in the beginning and then hopefully provide you with just a mad amount of value. So the Preservation Project has been the hardest thing I have ever sold in all of my offerings. And Fearless and Framed has only been around since 2014, but prior to that, since 2006, I have been selling something. I have been a bit of an entrepreneur for a very long time. And even when I was working in the corporate world, I was a sales rep. So I just cannot believe how difficult this has been to get the Preservation Project off the ground. And there are several reasons for that, but I'm going to share one of the bigger ones today. So the funny thing about the Preservation Project and how it's been so challenging for me to sell is that it has resulted in the most depth-filled success stories out of anything I have ever sold. I'm talking stuff that is coming into my inbox that I'm not asking for. It's just coming in with ease. People who are just so grateful that they have went through this program, telling me how it has changed their lives. In a lot of cases, it has to do with processing some grief, whether it's fresh or it's old. And I don't necessarily even mean losing somebody, but just maybe just seasons changing, you know what I mean? So it's crazy. And I'll tell you some of those success stories a little later. But I've been doing some reflecting on why is this so hard? Or why does this feel so hard? It feels hard, and when I look at the numbers, it's been hard. My main bread and butter of my business has been teaching documentary family photographers how to have stronger messaging in their online marketing, as well as teach them how to run workshops that allows them to get in front of their ideal audience while making a profit at the same time. So I've got a couple of programs there. And I've got to be honest, selling marketing programs, that's like a walk in the park to me now compared to what's been going on with the Preservation Project. And I think the reason why is that with the marketing programs, it's easier for my customers to wrap their heads around. These customers, and maybe this is you, maybe you have invested in Mastery Moment Seekers or in profitable photography workshops. You were looking for a solution to advance your business, right? That's what those are really at the end of the day. That's what that transformation is. And advancing your business, that means something to you, which is different to each person. So at the end of the day, that transformation is both emotion driven and it's logical. Like, you probably know that you don't know something about marketing. You believe that you're not a good marketer. You believe you're not good with your words and your stories. You believe that when you show up online, you don't really know what to say to your audience. Or you're wondering, can I teach a workshop? Am I ready? Like, do I know enough to teach that? And here I am giving you a workshop, on a platter, basically, to go out and do. So those solutions, like, it is very easy for you to picture how they fit into your life. Where the preservation project, the transformation, is a little less tangible. It's about awareness. That is what I'm promising you. Awareness is the number one word that has been coming out of the participants in the preservation project, like, once they're on the other side. I love how Dreama Spence worded it. And I'm paraphrasing here. I'm not saying this exact because I don't have it in front of me, but she was saying how because of the preservation project, now she's noticing things that she already knew, but they're like louder. She can hear her thoughts, or she can see them more clearly, and she can react to them. So that's really what this is about. But I'm finding most people aren't looking for that. Like, tell me honestly, are you walking the planet looking for more awareness? Of course not. And if you are, you're rare and I need to meet you. But most of us are just simply living our lives, and some things pop up here and there, or we pause once in a while to reflect on our lives, just like I was talking about in the monthly report. Like, I have that designated time every month where I sit down and look at my goals and all of that stuff. And even that reflection is usually based on some sort of personal growth or business goals, or it's like the state of how it feels in our family. Maybe we want to try to make our family more like full of kindness, or just more love, more compassion, more fun, more play, or whatever it is. It's in that kind of a context, which is a lot different than what I'm talking about here with this awareness that people are getting out of the preservation project. So first, little nugget of wisdom here for my creative entrepreneur and photographer listeners. Get crystal clear on the transformation you're selling. So I've said this all the time. Photographers are not selling pictures. They're selling what those pictures do for somebody's life, right? So what I'm saying here is you need to know what that transformation is, what that means to the people who are investing in that. How do your dream clients and customers interact with it? Like, right now, before working with you, and after. Like, look at that difference. And when and where do they even come in contact with it? When does there begin to be a need for whatever that transformation is? So I'm learning the hard way that I just have to continue going further back, meeting my dream customers where they're at. The fact is, they're not shopping for awareness yet. It is my job to spark that need for more awareness and to help people believe in why they need to practice it and what it can do for their lives. So I think that what I've done, one of the mistakes that I've made, is just assumed that because one of the core elements of the preservation project has to do with documenting. I just assumed that because it's something in the world of documenting, and it's a little bit different than these business classes, and it's not necessarily a photography class, but it's still under that umbrella of documenting. I just thought that this will be pretty easy because my audience already loves documenting. But what I'm finding is that's not true. I think what's happening is my audience already loves documenting and believe that they're basically experts in it because you've been practicing it. You're well versed in it. Maybe you've done a 365. Maybe you've been shooting for years and you're shooting things that are important to you, so you really just don't understand how this can impact your life. So it is my job to take a step backwards and come at this from another angle. So I just wanted to share all of that with you because I know a lot of you are growing a business, and if you're having a hard time it is almost always that people don't understand and value your offer. It is not that the excuses that we hear often are, oh, I'm broke, I don't have enough money, or I've got to talk to my husband, or I don't know, like whatever is coming up as an objection. At the end of the day, most often, the root is that they don't understand and value your offer. So for the rest of this episode, I am practicing on you, my friend. I have to define awareness. That's what I'm starting to understand, and how it can give you what you really want. What do you really want? I learned from Susan Ferraro, she was our guest back in episode 13, that no matter what it is that you want in life, there are 3 roots that they always boil down to. And that's freedom, love, and safety. The Preservation Project, and awareness for that matter, what that boils down to is a feeling of love, I think. Awareness, what that does is reveals the existing cues that are all around you, cues that we often miss because of 4 reasons. Number 1, we're experts of our own lives, so we kind of stop looking for things in our own lives. We don't really think that we're overlooking anything because we are the owner of our own lives. And therefore, we kind of stop asking questions. Number 2, we've been promised more in our society. I mean, that is just the main message in a lot of advertising these days is you deserve more, there's more for you. So we are out there, we are busy looking for our more. We are looking for our peace. We are going to find it. We're going to get it. Number 3, our flaws are illuminated, I think, probably more now than ever. I don't know about you, but when I get on Instagram and I read some captions, or maybe I see an article shared online, or I pick up some sort of a self-development book, it's really simple to relate to some of the feelings that somebody has inside of a problem and then adopt that problem as a truth for our own lives. So what I mean by that is I just read the book Present Over Perfect. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about the book. I just think I was not that book's ideal reader. And I related to a lot of the thoughts in the beginning of the book where the author was just talking about how, I wish I had like some quotes or something I had pulled out. So forgive me, I'm paraphrasing and just coming to this from memory. But she was talking about just how all-consuming her work was. And my favorite thing was how she fake rested, she called it, which I think were basically she would do lighter tasks like doing the laundry, and she'd call that resting, but really that wasn't resting. And at the end of the day, she was talking about just how she was addicted, not exactly just to working, but basically to prove herself. And I started just listening to some of what she was saying and being like addicted to like working and stuff, that I started to think and adopt the fact that I am, well, it's not a fact, but I started to adopt the ideal that I'm addicted to my business. But then, like, as I kept reading and just really thought with that some more, like at first I was like craving a solution to that. And I kept reading because I wanted to know, well, how do I get away from that? And she kept talking about how she would sit with herself and basically just let a lot of commitments go. And I just kept thinking about how, gosh, like it is very rare anymore that I ever do any kind of work on the weekend. I mean, the weekends are fun. I usually get to drop the kids off there's a drop-in childcare center here. And then Dave and I'll go out on a date, like a day date, like we did a few weeks ago. Like, no, I'm not addicted to my business. What I do have is a lot of passion, and I'm really happy about that. But I do a really good job at being present for my kids and for my husband because I do a good job at turning my work off. I definitely go through seasons where that's a little challenging, like lately because it's the winter and I know that the kids are going to be out of school for the summer soon. I'll admit I've been working after they get home from school. Like, I'll just make sure they're entertained doing whatever they're doing, and then I'll try to sneak some more work in. That is like where my danger zone is, but because I'm aware of it, I don't really chase it. Anyway, I'm sorry. That is a completely different like side note here, but the point that I'm trying to make with the third reason our flaws are illuminated is just that we are in a hurry to fix things in our life all the time, and sometimes it's all we can focus on. So that was the third reason that we miss these cues all around us. And then the fourth reason is that we live our lives like the good things will always be around, even though we know that's not the case. I don't know if any of those reasons resonate with you, if they've helped you believe that, yeah, maybe there are some cues, some things in my life that I'm completely overlooking because I don't even know to look for them. I'd love to hear from you on all of that for sure. But where I want to go next is you've probably heard all of the messages on being present. Maybe you're really good at practicing being present, but awareness is not presence. It is not the same thing. They are two completely different things. Awareness is a higher level of presence. It's a consciousness. It's not just being present. Presence can cue awareness, but awareness does not happen first. Most likely, you've already experienced it too, but what I'm trying to do here is help you experience it more often because there's some just major benefits that come with that awareness, which we'll get into. And I've got a couple stories. Number one, about a year ago, I was in the car in the passenger seat, and my husband was driving us home from Atlanta where I had surgery. You might remember me talking about that in episodes, I think, 8 and 9. We were holding hands, and I was completely present in that car. I was not thinking about anything besides just being there. I don't even think I was really thinking. My mind was just sort of lingering where it was at. I wasn't thinking about what I was going to do when I go home. I wasn't thinking about what was going to happen 5 minutes from now. I was just completely there. And this awareness emerged in that moment. I noticed that we were holding hands. It wasn't just that we were holding hands. I noticed that we were holding hands, and it gave me this flood of stories and thoughts that I am so glad that I acknowledged. In that moment, I was thinking about how Dave has always been at my side when I really need him. So I had had 2 cesareans, one for each kid, and then this was my second surgery for endometriosis. And every time that I've had a surgery, he has been by my side and been more compassionate and nurturing and caring and kind and just going out of his way to make sure that I was comfortable, like more than any other time. And I appreciated that. So I'm just really thankful that in that moment, like I felt all of that. I acknowledged it. I didn't take it for granted. And I've expressed that to him like so many times now about how like I noticed how he was showing up. Can you imagine? Like I should ask him. I wish I would have asked him before I started recording this, like how that made him feel, to feel seen and to feel acknowledged. Like if that were you, if that were me, that would feel so good to feel valued, right? Like I think, don't we all need more validation and to feel more valued and believed in and that we matter and all of those things, right? So that's just one example. And then the second example is we were visiting, my whole family, my Dave and the kids. We had went over to Ontario, Canada, where my sister-in-law had recently lost her dad. And so we went to the funeral home just to visit, and we had dropped the kids off at my in-laws' house, and my sister-in-law and brother-in-laws, their kids were at my in-laws' house as well. So they were watching all the cousins, all the grandkids. And after the funeral home, we went to pick up the kids. And as we were leaving, I was in the passenger seat as the car was backing out of the driveway. And there was my father-in-law up on the steps, waving his hand, and it hit me. The next time that I go to their house, I can expect the same thing. He's going to be out there waving his hand, and my mother-in-law will be standing next to him, probably not waving, but she's there, she's present. And it's something that's reliable and it's predictable, and it's just one of those simple things that matters. How many times is something happening in your life over and over and you just kind of overlook it? It's so familiar. So I was reading about, I don't remember which book it was in, darn it, but I was reading about how our brains are so quick to filter information, right? Like, if we don't want to waste energy that we don't have to waste. So things that are familiar and they're not necessarily a cue for our safety or for food or, survival, like, we just kind of brush it off. And I think we do that a lot with things that are just right under our freaking noses. But because of that awareness, I noticed this moment that matters. And so again, like, I'm sure you have experienced stuff like that too. And you're probably like, oh yeah, that's like the best thing ever. But did you know you could have more of that, and you can do more with that? Acknowledging and feeling those things in the moment rather than in hindsight, like so many good things in our lives, is a complete and total gift. And it's got me saying, more please. That awareness gives you a choice that simply does not exist without awareness. That choice is if and how you want to respond to whatever it is. Without that choice, there's a cost. It is the cost of you don't know what you don't know. And it looks like this. You may never notice whatever that thing is. You might just completely miss it. Wouldn't it be sad if I never would have noticed how sweet my mother and father-in-law are, always walking us completely out onto their porch, and I can always rely on him waving goodbye. I mean, it's so simple, but I'm so glad that I've noticed that. Without that choice, you may never understand the magnitude of like whatever that experience is or that moment. Or if you do, it'll be too late. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we're going to see the power of every moment. There's always going to be defining moments that we don't realize that they were a defining moment until later. But still, we have more control to see like just the goodness in our lives and the depth that they bring. And then the last thing is just that you may kind of notice it, but you take it for granted. And to build upon taking it for granted, there's a fear I have, which is that someone that I care about will pass away too soon before I ever let them know the impact that they've had on me, or I will pass away with a completely full heart instead of an empty, expressed heart. Like, I want to wring my heart just completely dry, letting people who matter to me know that they matter. But even that, saying you matter, is kind of empty. Here's why. I would love my Aunt Linda to know that shopping for a wedding dress with me really stuck. It made an impact for which I will always be grateful. I've got a whole story there, but for brevity, just know that. And the banter that we've always shared through the years, my Aunt Linda is married to my Uncle Ken, who is my dad's brother. And we did a lot with that part of my family growing up. We would go up to the cabin together, or my family would go down to their house in Indiana, or they would come up to my parents' house in Michigan. And I looked forward to hanging out with all of them, but I really had fun with my Aunt Linda throughout the years. I mean, I have fun with her. I just saw her at Thanksgiving. And it's just one of those small things in life that's been a simple but fulfilling pleasure. Can you see how being specific to why somebody matters packs more punch than all of the things that we say, like, I love you, you matter, thank you, I believe in you. Specificity makes these words mean something. It gives the words feeling. It makes them more believable. You want that kind of impact with the people you care about, right? I would imagine that you do. If so, you need to practice awareness first. And the Preservation Project is a framework to do that. Elevating your level of awareness means that you're going to see those cues of opportunity to respond or not. And I've got a really cool story to share with you that came from a book called Chasing Daylight. I'll link to the book in the show notes. And I'm going to paraphrase this excerpt because it was pretty long, so I don't want to read the whole thing. But the book itself is about Eugene O'Kelly, who he calls himself, his wife calls him Gene in the book, and he was living his life. He was a corporate guy in a big accounting firm, and he was in wonderful health until he wasn't. And one day he found out that he had a form of cancer and was expected to live 3 months. That was it, 3 months. So the book is actually it's like a memoir of his final 3 months on Earth. And I was really intrigued by that. So I bought the book, and his wife actually finished the last 2 chapters because he had went into hospice, couldn't write anymore, and ended up passing away. And there's a story that she shared in there that really just kind of puts all of this into context. At least it brings up a fear that I am completely terrified by. And it's this. So his wife said that a doctor came to visit, spent a little time with Gene, and told her that in the 6 years he's been doing full-time hospice work, he'd seen numerous people, younger and older than Gene, with the same diagnosis as Gene's, and that they experience what's called terminal restlessness or end-stage restlessness, which is an agitated state that frequently requires heavy medication like antipsychotics, opioids, and something I can't pronounce that means tranquilizers. And this state is caused by a combination of factors. It might be fluid pressure on nerve impulses or something physical, or its source may be social or spiritual. And then the doctor went on to say, when young people experience this restlessness, it's often because of the goodbyes and closures that they didn't have. A lot of people arrive at that final stage not having done the psychosocial and spiritual work that would have brought them more peace. And now I'm reading now. It's true for older people, but especially young people like Gene. The doctor realized that Gene's unwindings plan was somewhat compulsive and seriously type A, wanting to tie everything up as if it were possible, but that ultimately it was positive. So I kind of skipped over unwindings, and what that meant was a good chunk of this book was about how Gene took a look at everyone in his life, and he intentionally crafted these perfect moments where he let people know that they made an impact on him. Like he had, whether it was a conversation, maybe he created an experience. He took like some of his family out on a boating trip, and he did that work while he could, that this doctor is saying a lot of people don't do. And the doctor couldn't help but compare Gene's attitude with that of another man he had recently tended, a very senior executive at one of the big pharmaceutical companies. This man was about 60, not particularly close with his family, not close to his children, with no real spiritual foundation, and he would talk and mumble and even cry out in the middle of the night, angrily barking the names of colleagues and superiors, and his rankings were deeply upsetting to his wife and to others who came to see him at the end. The man had to be heavily medicated. He died restless. That is probably the most terrifying thing to me. I mean, when I pass, I hope that it's quick and I don't know that it's coming, or that it's very peaceful like Gene's. I don't know about you, but I want to live awake, not sleepwalking through all those cues that only consciousness gives. I want to experience more serendipity, which is the act of finding something valuable and delightful when you're not looking for it. And I want to do something with all of that. I want to do something good with all of that for the other people on this planet, especially the people who are closest to me and who I desperately want them to believe in themselves and for them to know and believe that they matter. They're valued. And it starts with practicing awareness so that we can recognize those cues. And in case you didn't know, that's exactly what you do in the Preservation Project through a whole menu of activity options, which part of that is documenting. And it's all set into a proven framework that works. You can learn more about that at fearlessandframed.com/preserve. Laura is a recent Preservation Project participant, and she got into the program very shortly after her dad passed. And she said that this program helped her to process or to start processing the grief. It gave her something to do in this time that was so difficult. Pam, she joined the Preservation Project because her father-in-law had just passed. She had some trouble in her marriage. There was just so many things flying around. Her one daughter had just graduated. Her other daughter was having a hard time in school. And this gave her a way to just turn inwards and do something beautiful. And out of that, she did something that she believes made her husband feel like he was actually seen and looked at. And she started to see that there were more opportunities, even though her daughters were like older. She hadn't really been photographing them and documenting them as we do when our kids are little. And she started to see just more opportunities for these moments that are still really special and important. And she said that they're sneaky, but they're there. Ebony saw more than her daughters playing on the swing set. She saw just the wear and tear of the swing set and all of the good and beautiful memories that swing set represented. She saw more depth to that swing set than just looking at a swing set. And I could go on and on and on. Kelly is another person. She lost her uncle in December, and she said that she spent more time with him that felt intentionally connected, and she felt fulfilled. And that was because of going through the Preservation Project. All of that to say, all of these women that I talked about, which we've had some guys in the program as well, they all experienced transformation that's internal, right? It is about awareness and really feeling some of the moments that they were living out and just sort of looking at their own lives through a different lens. It wasn't about the documenting and the preserving memories and the putting your pictures into photo books, which I think a lot of our documentary family photographer audience just assumes that this is. That's part of it, but it's not that. So I've got some gut check questions for you. I don't expect you to run out and get into the Preservation Project, so I've got to leave you with something to do to elevate your own awareness, right? So that is the point of these gut check questions every single week is just asking some relevant questions. So I've got 3 of them for you today. Number 1 is, how often do you pause and really look at your life? Is there a way that you can initiate some sort of a practice so that you can do that? Maybe it's like a once a month date with yourself to do that. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's every Saturday morning when the kids are watching cartoons and you're on the couch. I don't know. But how often do you pause and really look at your life? Start there. Number 2, how are you doing that when you're doing it? Are you doing it in a self-critical way, like looking at your goals and where you're at and really illuminating where you're not at? Or are you kind of reminiscing and looking at remember whens or what's going on in your life that's good, but it's kind of fleeting? Or do you really allow that to sink in? So that is really important, because I think sometimes we can say, you know what, I reflect on my life kind of a lot. I do a gratitude journal every single day. But are you really sinking into that, or is it fleeting? And if you are connecting with all these things in your life, good or hard, are you doing something with that that can elevate the people around you and strengthen your ties to them, or to allow you to process and let things go, or to, ask for more of whatever that is. And then the third question is, how can you practice awareness? Again, I'd love to help you with that. fearlessandframed.com/preserve. Until next time, my challenge to you this week is to play with living more awake and report back with whatever you find. Send me an email, marie@fearlessandframed.com, DM me on Instagram. Bye for now.